Last night on Monday Night Raw, Triple H did something massive. He introduced a new World Championship, the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. As far as the aesthetic, it looks, in my eyes at least, like a sort of hybrid between the current Intercontinental Championship and the big gold belt. Obviously, they've stuck the big, well, not the big, but they've stuck WWE logo in the middle. That's just what they do now. Let's accept that. So that's the new championship, that's the design. And I feel like this, when we look back on WWE in a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, this is going to be a massive moment in the company. This is a moment where they introduce a new world championship. It's a big deal. It's a big talking point. It's a big story. And in this video today, I'm going to go over sort of just a general discussion about this title and who should be that first champion. Who should be the one to hold the title first and where they can go with that, because there's a couple of different rabbit holes you can go. One, I feel you just should not go at all, and we'll get to that. So before I get to that, comment down below, who do you think should be the first WWE World Heavyweight Champion? What sort of guys do you think should be competing for this title? What sort of matchups do you want to see for this title? All that good stuff. Hit it down below. So on May 27th at Night of Champions, deep in the heart of Saudi Arabia, WWE will crown the first WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And to me, there are three rabbit holes they can go with this. Well, there's four, but I don't want them going down the fourth because it wouldn't make sense. For starters, the big one that I've seen people going on about on social media, the big sort of betting favorite right off the jump with this new championship is Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins for the last really month or two, specifically ever since around WrestleMania time. I know he did some interviews around WrestleMania and coming out. There's been a lot of stuff about Rollins feeling like he deserves better, which that word in wrestling gets overused quite a bit. Rollins deserves better. He's been over. He hasn't had a world championship run in 4 years. He's been a constant big time performer that he deserves the title. So Rollins is getting a lot of the fanfare. He cut a good promo on Raw about how this championship, the new title, isn't about part-timers or politics. It's about, you know, excellence week to week and who deserves it. I get that. So Rollins is the first sort of name that comes to mind with this championship. I have reservations about Seth Rollins. For one, the 2019 run. I have not PTSD, because I don't want to throw that out because people legitimately suffer with PTSD, but having watched that run live, watching that championship run with Baron Corbin feuding, with the stuff with Brock Lesnar where Rollins is crying in the ring every week, with the stuff just generally in the rain, it was just a horrible world championship run. It was a dud. Quite objectively, it was a dud of a world title reign for Rollins. And then before that, you have 2015, which some people look back on as it was a great run. In the most objective sense, I'll say that it was a fine, okay world championship run. It wasn't one of the great world title reigns. I said on Twitter it was a dud. Maybe not a dud, but I didn't enjoy it in the slightest. I just did not find it entertaining. Him cowering in fear behind two cruiserweights and then having okay matches at pay-per-views where you had celebrities costing the matches, Brock Lesnar throwing car doors, Sting nearly being paralyzed with the statue storyline. There was that. So, point being, Seth Rollins is like the first big name people are throwing out for this. Rollins is the first champion. The pros, I will say, it's a good established name to have as that first champion, which I feel like you need. I feel like you need an established name, because the second option, which they could do, is what they did with Finn Balor and the Universal title, which I could not stand. Balor was on the main roster for a cup of coffee. He was on the main roster for about 5 minutes, and all of a sudden he was the new Universal World Champion. If you hadn't watched NXT, you had no clue who this guy was. Why should we care about him? Why is he being given the World Championship having done literally nothing on the main roster? These are the sort of questions I and many others were asking when Balor was just given the Universal title in 2016. They could do something similar. The draft is literally next week. You could have Braun Breaker or someone like that just be thrust into our, main roster TV screens, I guess. That doesn't really make sense, but thrust onto the main roster and within a month be crowned as the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Braun Breaker is obviously the big name I think of with that. I think that's a terrible way of going about it. In 2016, it was a bad idea with Finn Balor. We never saw how that played out because obviously the barricade powerbomb spot at SummerSlam, he popped his shoulder. We know the drill there. But in 2023, doing that with Braun Breaker or some guy from NXT or just someone generally in the draft, shoving someone up and within a month just accelerating them into this main event sort of spot, I don't know about that. The other option, which I think is a good idea, some people will complain about this, but I think all things considered, it's a pretty good idea. Brock Lesnar. Now, Brock has appeared at every pay-per-view this year, all 4 of them. Well, once Backlash happens against Cody. He's appeared on every, really, Raw or 2 Raws. He's been literally a full-timer this year. So this isn't 2017, this isn't 2018 Brock, where he gets given a title and doesn't show up for 3 months. Brock's appearing every week. And as he was described last night by Cody Rhodes, he's the most decorated athlete in the history of combat sports. Having Brock as the first champion with this title is as credible and as legitimate as you can get. And I get it. Maybe he's not as deserving in the IWC Twitter spaces as someone like Seth Rollins is. I understand that. But Brock Lesnar brings a legitimacy and a credibility to this new world title that is so pivotal in trying to make it something of, you'd aspire to win. So Brock Lesnar in that regard would be big. You could have Brock, even if he only holds his title for 1 to 2 months, then loses the belt to, I don't know who. He loses it to someone like a young sort of star, maybe at SummerSlam potentially, or early in a few months, and it's a big sort of coronation moment for someone else. That's just my idea. That's my perspective. So there's that. The one name I thought of when they introduced the championship, when they revealed the title, I thought that's Cody's title. Like, that's Cody's title to win. Upon a bit of thinking and a bit of sort of pondering with that, that's really not a direction they should go down in 2023. Cody in 2023 needs to dethrone Roman, because if Cody isn't this year, Roman's going to hold those titles until he's, until Roman's like 45, and Reigns will hold those titles like 8 years. Because outside of 2023 Cody, I find it hard to believe anyone's going to get to a level of credibility, legitimacy, fan overness with the crowd to where it's going to be good when they dethrone Roman. Now, some are saying Solo Sikoa. I don't see it with Solo from the perspective of dethroning Roman. Solo has a good upper mid card to, credible main event. Well, not credible main event, but just credible WWE main roster career ahead of him. 100%. Being the guy to dethrone the Tribal Chief, I still don't see it with Solo Sikoa. They're going to need to do a damn good storyline and really present him well for me to start to see it with Solo. Cody has to be the one to dethrone Roman, so having Cody just go after this new big gold WWE World Heavyweight title belt right away wouldn't really make sense in that regard. As much as it would make sense for him to be the guy holding that title, carrying Raw every week, it wouldn't make sense because he needs to be the one to dethrone Roman. And if he's not, then, well, once again, who the hell is it? Solo? Braun Breaker in a year and a half? Really the big thing with this new championship, the one thing I will say, how they introduced this championship was quite literally Triple H going, Roman Reigns has both titles. Roman Reigns has negotiated things to where he doesn't show up really at all anymore. He sits at home with both titles and doesn't come into work. As a result, we've got a new world championship. Triple H did not say this was a consolation prize, but it was implied when you were watching it that this is sort of the number 2 prize. And when you're talking about a number 2 prize, a guy like Drew McIntyre after the draft is a perfect name to contend for this title. Guys like Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, maybe your Kevin Owens, guys like that. Eventually Cody perhaps, but not in 2023. Those are the perfect names to contend for this title. As well as that, guys who win Money in the Bank now, like an Austin Theory, if you do an LA Knight, Dominic Mysterio, those sort of guys, the ones who just should not dethrone Roman Reigns under any way, shape, or circumstance. Guys like that now can win Money in the Bank or be put into the WWE World Heavyweight title picture and be legitimately credible, have great programs for that belt, and it's believable, it's realistic. Because as we saw with Austin Theory and Money in the Bank last year, when you have one world champion who is only going to be dethroned in a once-in-a-5-year circumstance situation like Roman is, a guy like Theory running around with Money in the Bank is just simply never going to have a hope in hell of succeeding. So Money in the Bank now can actually go towards elevating, I don't know, an LA Knight, a Dom Mysterio, a new NXT superstar, someone else who's already on the show who can be elevated in that regard, like Damian Priest perhaps. That sort of stuff. So that's my general stance on the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, the new title. Rollins is like the betting favorite. He makes sense. I think it should be Brock if I'm booking it. People are saying Cody. I don't think that makes sense. A guy coming in from SmackDown to Raw in the draft, or NXT to Raw in the draft, and just winning the title right away. I don't think that's a great idea unless they book it really well. So that's where it's at. Who wins the consolation prize to Roman Reigns? Who is that? Waits to be seen. Like, comment, sub, your zone drill.